In a rapidly shifting global order, alliances are being rewritten. Imagine a situation where an attack on one nation immediately draws another into the fray, not out of moral obligation, but because of a binding treaty. On September 17, 2025, Pakistan and Saudi Arabia signed exactly such a pact, called the Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement. This was not just a ceremonial handshake. It was a declaration that any aggression against one would be treated as aggression against both. In this video, we will unpack what this pact really means, how it might reshape power dynamics in the Middle East, and what India must reckon with as a result. So let's dive deep. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe because global power shifts like this demand our attention. First, let us understand the essence of this pact. The Strategic Mutual Defense Agreement was signed in Riyadh by Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Its central clause is strikingly clear. Any act of aggression against either country will be considered aggression against both. The pact speaks of enhanced defense cooperation, joint deterrence and mutual security. However, what it does not clarify is just as important as what it states. The treaty does not explicitly define whether aggression includes cyber attacks, proxy conflicts, missile strikes, or terrorism. Nor does it clearly state whether Pakistan's nuclear arsenal will ever be factored into this alliance. That ambiguity makes the pact more intriguing and perhaps more dangerous. Now, to truly understand its meaning, we must turn to the Middle East. For decades, Saudi Arabia's security umbrella rested firmly under the protection of the United States. But times are changing. Recent years have seen doubts grow in Riyadh about Washington's reliability, especially after America's inconsistent involvement in regional conflicts. The Saudi leadership now seeks to diversify its partnerships. By formally aligning with Pakistan, a nuclear-armed state, Riyadh is signaling to the world that it is no longer content to rely on a single guarantor of its security. Instead, it is building new networks of deterrence. For the Middle East, this pact could serve as a message to regional rivals, particularly Iran, that any aggression will now face a potentially stronger and more unpredictable response. The symbolism of a nuclear power standing beside Saudi Arabia may deter aggression, even if the nuclear clause is never explicitly mentioned. At the same time, this pact might inspire other Gulf states to consider their own defense arrangements, possibly creating a ripple effect of new alliances across the region. But the implications do not stop in the Middle East. On the global stage, this agreement underscores a deeper truth. America's monopoly over Gulf security is eroding. By reaching for Islamabad's hand, Riyadh is hedging against the uncertainties of United States foreign policy. For Pakistan, the benefits are obvious. It raises Islamabad's profile from being a regional South Asian player to being recognized as a key defense partner for the heart of the Islamic world. This could translate into greater military contracts, economic support, and political leverage. For the global order, it hints at the possibility of new blocs emerging, structured less around old Cold War alignments and more around contemporary power balances and religious, regional, or strategic affinities. Now let us turn to India, because here the implications are particularly sharp. For years, India has built strong relations with Saudi Arabia, not just through trade and energy, but also through investment and the large Indian diaspora working in the kingdom. This pact complicates that relationship. Suddenly, Saudi Arabia, one of India's most important economic partners, has formally tied itself to Pakistan, India's greatest rival. While the agreement may not directly target India, New Delhi must now calculate the risks of a Saudi Arabia that could potentially stand beside Pakistan in the event of a serious conflict. Even if the practical military consequences remain unclear, the perception alone changes the equation. India may feel pressure to accelerate its military modernization, strengthen intelligence sharing, and deepen alliances with countries like the United States, Israel, and the United Arab Emirates to balance against this new axis. The energy dimension is also crucial. Saudi Arabia supplies a significant portion of India's crude oil imports. If tensions ever rose, New Delhi would find itself vulnerable in ways it has long tried to avoid. It might push India to diversify its energy sources more aggressively, perhaps leaning further into renewables or closer ties with other oil-exporting states. At the same time, India will tread carefully. It cannot afford to alienate Riyadh, yet it cannot ignore the symbolic weight of this Saudi-Pakistan alignment. Diplomacy will therefore become India's most important weapon. Expect New Delhi to seek closer bonds with other Gulf powers, while also keeping a strong back channel open with Riyadh to ensure that Saudi investment and energy flows are not jeopardized. Of course, there are major uncertainties. The pact is clear in language but vague in detail. What exactly counts as aggression? How quickly would either side respond? Will Saudi Arabia allow Pakistani troops or missiles to be stationed on its soil? Will intelligence cooperation deepen, and if so, how? These are questions the agreement leaves unanswered, giving both nations flexibility, but also introducing room for miscalculation. The financial aspect is also important. Pakistan is facing economic struggles, and there are doubts about whether it can fulfill major defense commitments without Saudi financial assistance. If promises are not backed by resources, the pact may remain more symbolic than operational. What about the wider region? Iran will certainly view this pact with suspicion, fearing a stronger Sunni alignment against its interests. Israel will read it as a complication in its already tense regional environment. Turkey and the United Arab Emirates will weigh their own positions carefully. The United States, long the external security anchor in the Gulf, will now have to calculate how this agreement affects its own credibility and influence. In short, the ripple effects of this pact are not confined to South Asia and the Gulf. They could shape the next phase of global security alignments. So what could the world look like going forward? We may see a more multipolar Middle East, with Saudi Arabia no longer depending solely on Washington, but instead creating a patchwork of partnerships. We may also see heightened strategic ambiguity, where the threat of joint retaliation deters conflict but also risks unintended escalation if either side overreacts. India may face a new period of uncertainty in its neighborhood, where even symbolic moves embolden its adversaries. And the world at large may be entering an era where bilateral defense pacts reshape regions as much as, if not more than, traditional superpower alliances. The Pakistan-Saudi Defense Pact is more than just ink on paper. It is a signal that security in the Middle East and South Asia is being reimagined. A signal that old alliances may not be enough. A signal that India, Pakistan, the Gulf states, and global powers must adapt or risk being left off balance. But now the question goes to you. Do you believe this pact will actually deter conflict, or will it raise the risk of dangerous escalations? And do you think India should move quickly to create new military alliances, or can it manage these changes with diplomacy and existing strength? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this analysis, remember to like, share, and subscribe. Because the story of global power is being rewritten before our eyes, and you don't want to miss it.